Welcome back, everybody. Unapologetically Audacious podcast. I am your special host today, Stefano, and I'm very excited to be here. And I am looking forward to this conversation. It's going to be a very interesting conversation, but let's get down to it. I am just playing around. I want to welcome the beautiful, the amazing, my fiancé, Rebecca Nobrega.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Well, like he said, welcome to this episode of Unapologetically Audacious. It is, in fact, a very special one. And this guy needs no introduction. You just heard from him, but he is someone who, a higher power for sure, the universe conspired in helping me meet. I'm very grateful. Stefano Pecchia, the host of his very own Couple Casuals podcast, and my husband-to-be, Steph. So happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. You see, you nailed it.
Yeah, it was different than I thought, but it was perfect. It was aligned.
Exactly, as we are. So I firstly want to say thank you so much for having me. And yes, I think there was some powers to be that brought us together on this very frequency, this very thing that we're doing right now, which is having conversations. So I love to have conversations with you, and I'm very happy to be here doing that exact thing.
You know, it's funny because I'm nervous. This is my podcast, but I'm nervous having you because you're my fiance now, and that's not how this started. But we met through podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first reached out to you, the intention was to talk more about high value men, high value women, relationships, and then the significance of personal development and the role that plays in manifesting a really great relationship and all that. And little did I know that wanting you on as my guest and being directed to you by for sure a higher power, we would be getting married. So it's crazy.
It is crazy because, like, many people don't know, but we've talked about so many different times, the story behind us actually meeting is a very in-depth, individual-based journey of our own, that if it would have been 6 months prior, it wouldn't have probably worked out the way it did. Or if it would have been a year or 2 years or whenever before it actually did happen, it wouldn't have been as beautiful and as natural and as gifted as it was. So what a journey. And it's just a testament to anybody out there that, you know, putting yourself out there and doing things could lead to something great.
Absolutely. And divine timing, you're right. Even if it was 6 months before, it just wasn't aligned at that time. And I think it's just a reminder, and we'll get into it, but that nothing happens a moment sooner than it's supposed to in anything, be that in relationships, your professional life, your personal life. Everything is very divine, and it's not really up to us. Like, of course, we have to do the work, but when it happens, it'll happen when it's supposed to.
I believed that. I always did. But it's hard when, you know, you tell somebody that and maybe they're in a time where it's not the best time for them. And it's a little bit difficult. And they're just like, maybe it's just not meant to be for me. Or maybe, you know, you start to question yourself. But I have to take the optimistic approach and believe that. And I stuck to it. And I believed in the regards to a relationship specifically, something I thought about for a long time and I was grappling with. And I had my own things that I had to kind of sort out, which I did. And then leaning into my own individual purpose being podcasting, that kind of led me to you. So yeah, you have to take faith into timing. And it's hard for people to really think about and accept, but what's the alternative? You know, just believe it.
So before you found me,
Wow. Oh, geez.
before you found me, question. I have a quote that I really want to set the tone. I want to set this conversation with, and you're really going to like it. But did you believe that you would find the person you were looking for?
Yeah, I always would go back to that, but there was definitely times where I would question, you know, it always starts with you as an individual. And I had a lot of things that, you know, in detail that I had to sort through. And, you know, you have experiences and you date and just things don't feel right. And I always would question, like, is it something wrong with me? Is it like, why can't I open myself? What is going on that I can't figure out? Why can't I just lean into a relationship? And this is something that I really yearn for. And I value. So why can't I make that happen? And the opportunities that are coming, I can't find out a way to, like, kind of push through and make it happen. And I think it's because I always had this reservation that there was something in alignment for me that was there that ultimately was you. So throughout experience and then patience and timing and God and faith, I think everything kind of happens exactly as it should. But to answer the question, yeah, I believed it. I did. But there was times where, you know, people need to understand that life is very complex and there's ups and downs. So in my own battle, I had, yeah, sometimes I really believed it. And then sometimes I was like, fuck, maybe I'm just going to be single, bro. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but like, it is what it is, you know? But like, I don't want to, because I want to have a family big time. And I want to have a high value relationship. I want to have something that's worth contending with and being there for, and just, it was something that I really valued, and it was something that I wanted to manifest and make happen. And throughout time, it did, but it took patience, it took resistance. And at the end of the day, like, this is a journey that you have to always, it's like, no, like, oh, we have a relationship now, life's good. That's not the way it
Yeah.
is. It's work. Everything is work that you have in your life. Everything that you attain or you're working towards is always work. Even when you're in a relationship. Now I always say this to you, you learn about yourself before a relationship, but then when you're in a relationship, you learn about yourself in a relationship. So
Mm-hmm.
this journey is forever, and I looked forward to it, and I did. I believed it. It was there.
So I want to unpack all of that,
Mm-hmm.
but ever so quickly. So Conor McGregor said this, okay? He said that his success was not a result of his arrogance, but rather his belief.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that can apply to every aspect of our life, all the pillars of life, professional career, relationships, and so on, where you can even, let's say, you can know you're a great person. You can know that you'll show up in these kinds of ways. You can want the family. You know you'd be the best manager. You know you would be, there's this arrogance, there's this confidence in the best way and with the best intentions. But you have to believe it first. So you can have that arrogance, but you have to believe that it's possible. One can't really exist without the other. So it's almost like having faith to a degree as well.
Mm-hmm.
So at least that's how I kind of take that quote, and I know that you really resonate with Conor McGregor. So I thought, why not?
Remember, that was one of the first things. Well, you asked me when you came on the podcast. You asked me like my self-development journey, and that's one of the things I
It's
had to
Conor
unpack.
McGregor.
Well, it was Conor McGregor. Like, people see him now and they're just like, "Whoa, Conor McGregor! He like is like punching old men in bars and doing crazy ass stuff." But what I resonated with him was his dialogue and how he would carry himself, and then even further, him talking about the power of the mind and manifestation, and more in particular, I don't even like to use that word that much, but more the law of attraction and just the power of the mind and thoughts becoming things.
That's
That's
right.
something that I resonated with big time, because I tend to be, I would think based off my own self-assessment that I'm more of a neurotic individual, technically speaking. All my favorite songs are super depressing, but I wear it on my sleeve. I love that. But when I heard Connor talk about it and like the law of attraction and these sort of things, I resonated with it because it helped me offset that automatic switch to my neuroticism that I just innately had. And sometimes it can be useful and sometimes it cannot. So I had work to do on my mental game. And that was really the beginning of that for me, was taking inspiration from what another man said and then using it as my own. And then that was
Mm-hmm.
really the Pandora's box, if you will, as you once said, infamously on my podcast, which I still remember. I always give you a hard time for it, but I love it. That was really the beginning for me, was that man as an inspiration. Many more before that too, like real individuals in my life and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an ever long journey, and that was sort of the beginning.
So the question I have to that
Sure.
specifically, unapologetically audacious is all about audaciously living unapologetically.
And you
Being
can't say it 5 times fast, by the way.
You can if you try hard
Unapologetically
enough.
audacious, unapologetically audacious,
Unapologetically
I
audacious.
challenge all the listeners to say that 5 times fast. Sorry. Go
Um,
ahead.
so it's about showing up authentically,
Yeah.
and it starts with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In relationships, everything starts with you, and we have this responsibility to ourselves to get to know ourselves. So my response to everything you just said is, you always start your podcast and you ask me some crazy profound question,
It's
and
debatable, but yeah,
I have something to ask you.
sure.
Who is Stefano Pecchia?
Who is Stefano? It's a beautiful question, honestly. I think I'm a practitioner of learning. I am a person that values social connections. I think I'm a combination of extroverted and introverted. in the most weird, odd way, but it works. I'm somebody who values family and moments. I believe that God is the orchestrator of all things good and bad, but when bad things happen, there's a super good reason for it. You just may not see it just at that specific second. I'm somebody that tries to study my humility as I once may not have done before. And I think that through experience, I'm on a journey that will never end of learning, growing, and becoming more of myself. And the only way to figure that out is to lean into the things that kind of make you nervous, lean into the things that suck, and embrace the chaos of life and have faith to take a leap into the unknown. So that encapsulated all together, I think, is somewhat of who I represent. But I'm a man of my word, and I think that in order to grow, you need to really study yourself. And my individual growth and my individual pursuits have been a big responsibility and a big thing for me to grow. And it's what led me to you, and it's what will lead us to greater things.
So throughout this process, how did you know maybe when you were not being authentic, which would have resulted in you leading more authentically? Or what did you feel in those moments when you weren't being authentic? What were the signals your body was giving to you?
Well, I think there's a voice inside your head that we should listen to, and that sometimes we don't. It could be good or bad, but I think there's times in your life where you go through experiences, especially as a young man, where you compare yourself to others, as many people do. And there's been times, certainly, when you're in the more difficult times, you look for something to latch onto, or you look at the next person and says, "Oh, maybe this guy's got it right. I'm going to try to emulate that." But through those experiences is where you find out what your authentic self is by
Mm.
trying shit and then it not being what you resonate with most. It's not being who you are, is stumbling forward towards more of yourself. So in my life, I've had times where maybe I was acting in a way that wasn't authentic to myself, but I think there was always something greater, and then my voice and my subconscious keeping me accountable to always try to steer back, which we're always working towards authenticity at 100%, but it's a work in progress. It always is. So it was something that was always there, but I always found a way to get back to center. I think I would like to say that. I think.
Authenticity is certainly a journey. It requires a significant amount of resilience and courage.
What does authenticity
And
mean to you?
evolving. It means very similarly to what it means to you. It really is being courageous enough to listen to like to listen to what your soul is calling for, to listen to that higher voice and just be the best person that you can be. Who is these innate desires that we have, who we are, as human beings, what it is that makes our soul smile, that brings us joy.
So do you think that every person has something innate in them and a calling, so to speak?
I do. I don't think that the desires that we have are here for no reason. I think that they're here for a reason. I think that they were put there. I think that we're supposed to, in this world, we're here and we're supposed to listen to that. Because imagine we went through life the way that we are, and we know that we've got things that are wrong with us. So let's say, for instance, there's somebody who grapples with anger management. That's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been this way. I don't need to do anything different. My family, my wife, my friends, I'm just this way. They just accept me the way that I am. We can accept you the way that you are, but are you happy being that way? Is there something more you can do? Is that really your true self? Is that really you being your unapologetically true self? Why are you that way? Is it as a result of maybe something that happened in your childhood? Is it a result of an incident that happened in your life? I think that being authentic means evolving and growing and striving to be the best people we can be, because we get one life. And why not be happy? Why not feel joy? So,
Where do you think you identified that? Like, because I think a lot of people, maybe they don't think about as deep, because we tend to go pretty deep in our conversations, and that's what we kind of connected on at first. When we met up and talked for the first time, it was about these sort of things. So that's what we connected on. But some people maybe don't travel through those kinds of conversations. So I always wonder, like, what if I'm somebody who doesn't think about those things, or just acts as is, and that's it? How do they find their way back?
I mean, first and foremost, I have a lot of compassion for those people, because I think that they're really missing out on a life beyond their wildest dreams. And I say that a lot. I think a life beyond your wildest dreams exists past the fear.
Hmm.
And I think that the unknown is scary. I think it's as simple as, if there's something you don't like and you're saying yes, but something inside you is saying, well, I don't want this, or I don't want to do that. That is you being authentic. It's honoring what you want versus what you don't want. That's on like a very surface level, for instance. Like, your friends want you to do something, but you don't really feel like going. You need rest, let's say, or you'd rather have a night in, but you're saying yes. So that's a result of, one, maybe people pleasing, but also, not wanting to let people down. But you know that that's not who you are. So if you continue to walk through life doing things that don't make you feel good, and you're not serving yourself, without saying those words, those feelings that come to you. Everybody has gone through it. We all still go through it. I still go through it in this journey of still discovering who I am.
Hmm.
I know for myself, when I was younger, but in my early 20s, all I could feel was un this lack of fulfillment with who I was. I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing in my career. I knew where I was in my life, but I wasn't happy. I was really unhappy, and I wasn't fulfilled, and I wanted to be fulfilled. And it took me doing more of what brings me joy and connecting to myself, that I started learning what being authentic was. It's honoring yourself. It's letting your hair down once in a while. It's not being afraid to go outside with makeup, because you're beautiful with and without it. It's staying in. It's saying no. It's saying no when you want to say yes. It's saying yes when you want to say no. It's doing the things that you want to do. So it's it can start so simply, just by honoring your needs.
Hmm. I think accountability is a part of it too.
Yeah.
And sometimes people maybe don't want to lean into that because there's work involved, but I would attribute a lot of my personal growth and the journey that I'm still going on and always will be, is to that realization of wanting change and something different just within yourself. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people always have it worse than you. But just you as an individual, let's say, you don't need to be forget about monetary value or your material world and stuff like that. Just you on where you are, your potential. The word is potential, because there is so much potential that you have as an individual. You do have a lot of potential, but how do you reach it? How do you fulfill it? And it happens incrementally by leaning into the things that make you nervous. And I'm still grappling with them all the time. But through that is where you start to really understand and realize your potential.
And I'm going to use a classic line that I said on your podcast when you had me on: potential is nothing without action.
Exactly. Yeah. I learned that was something that you said that was really good. Yeah.
Uh,
And awareness too. You taught me a lot about, because without awareness, you don't identify where you are and in which direction to go.
and that's how you know who you are. That's another way to live more authentically. It's having a significant amount of self-awareness. So you see the potential that's out there, you see the people around you. If you see somebody that maybe embodies certain characteristics or is living their life a certain way, and there are bits and pieces you want to draw inspiration from, ask yourself why. What is it about this person you're so drawn to, or what they're doing, that you desire, and why?
Hmm.
Ask yourself those questions and identify it. Do I like this? Do I want to lead this way because I personally resonate with it, or because I feel pressured to, or because someone is telling me that's the way I should?
Yeah.
So, in regards to relationships, everything starts with you. And everything we've just touched on, it's so much to unpack. learning who you are is a lot to unpack, and we evolve.
Mm-hmm.
So along the way, we have to give ourselves grace
Mm-hmm.
and compassion, because we're not going to be the same people 5 years from now. You change and you grow for the
How
better.
beautiful is that, though?
Right. And so my question for you is in regards to relationships and personal development. At what do you recall the time when you knew what you wanted out of love and in a relationship? And what would that past version of you say to you right now?
It's such a deep question. It's really good. Just really good, guys. Just saying. Um, I knew what I didn't want, and I think that helps with what you do want. I think I can start there. But what I wanted in love is, I know a lot of men can agree to this, is sometimes when you're with somebody, if they make you uncertain, especially as a man, that's something you don't want. You know, where there's maybe a lapse of trust. That's something I definitely didn't want. You want certainty, you want trust, you want support, you want nurturing, you want feminine energy, you
Mm-hmm.
want love by physical touch, but also just spiritual connection and stuff. Sometimes that's all a man needs, is a bit of words of encouragement and some physical touch and special moments with that individual. So I knew that I knew what I didn't want, and it's sad to say, but you take it from other relationships that you see along the way. Respect is a big thing for a man, and I see that we're in a time now where men don't maybe a lot of, I'm not going to say in general, I'm going to generalize it, but sometimes men don't respect themselves, and in exchange for that, and in result of that rather, the women that they're with or women in general won't respect them. So you have to kind of command that in a way, and I think that happens back to yourself as an individual. So if you do yourself the justice of working on yourself as an individual, getting yourself to a certain stage where you know you're worthy of something very good, through that, you will command the respect that you deserve. So as a man, we feel love through respect. We feel love through nurturing and femininity. We need that offset to our sometimes complex masculine energy. And these things are work and nuance together, so they're beautiful. So um, I knew what I didn't want, so it helped me figure out what I did want.
And what would that past version of you say to yourself now?
You would say, good on you, bud. No, you would say, I would, honestly, I tell you this all the time. I talked about you a lot before I met you. I journaled. I've always been. I know it's like, oh, I journaled a lot and I did this, but I fucking did. And I know like a lot of people talk about that, especially on podcasts. Like journaling is so beneficial for you. Like I'm not getting there, but I did. I would talk to like leading up to meeting you. I was working on myself and I had to develop so many different areas. And then relationships and intimacy and opening myself up to vulnerability was the last one on the docket that I sort of had to really compact. And I would talk to the people closest to me of what I wanted in a woman, of what I didn't like. Through my experiences that I went through, I would tell them things that would make me anxious, things that weren't working, things that didn't feel right. I would speak to family and stuff like that. And through these conversations, I was very open always. So I realized where I was and what I wanted. And through journaling and talking to myself and literally like putting it out there, what did I want? And I got pretty clear on almost to the like literally physical look. Like I told you all the time, I make a joke about your hair and physical attributes and stuff. I literally would talk about that. And then we met. So I think my past self would be like, wow, that's why you waited. So I value intimacy. I value our relationship and love. So it's an ever long journey, and it really is. But looking back on it, I kind of knew. I don't know. It's weird.
And imagine you had settled and you were not, and you didn't continue to bet on yourself or have faith that it would work out for you.
I think it was kind of a combination of both. Like a little bit, just the timing wasn't right, and I wouldn't be able to settle into who I am for the relationship that maybe was presenting itself. But I needed to do work on myself because it always starts with you. Relationships don't fill that wound. Relationships, forget the wound. Relationships don't fill that gap that you might have in your life. You have to work on yourself to get to yourself to a certain point where you feel confident enough to command that respect, to command that love that you deserve, and then in exchange give that to another person too. Because people are always interested on oh, this is what I deserve, especially men nowadays. Like, but what are you bringing to the table though? Like, what are you gonna do though? Like, you're very crystal clear on what you want a woman to do and stuff like that. You know, you want her to be domesticated, you want her to be emotionally intelligent, you want her to be supportive to you, physically, mentally, spiritually. But bro, you don't even work out. Like, you don't even like what are you doing? Like, what are you doing that's challenging yourself on a daily basis? Like, you don't have to, let's say, work out, but what are you doing to drive towards yourself to be something better? And
Hmm.
it looks different for everybody.
So then that will lead me to sort of the dynamics of
Hmm.
masculinity, femininity. You mentioned how men feel loved, so through
Right.
respect, for example. What specific characteristics do you think a me- both men and women need to embody to hone in on that natural essence of masculinity and femininity?
What do they need to hone in on?
Hmm.
Well, I think it's somewhat innate. Back to
Right.
our overall conversation, I think it's somewhat innate. But sometimes in certain, depending on certain things that you're doing or certain areas, maybe a woman will fill a certain gap more than the man. But I think masculinity is keeping your word, being a man of responsibility, burdening your load that you have, directing, leading, showing up in many different ways, and being able to support your woman physically, mentally, spiritually, and have a sense of home presented to the woman when she needs it. It's a sense of comfort. It's a sense of security. Like, oh, I know everything's gonna be looked after. Steph is here, or like, I know everything's gonna be looked after. Steph's taking care of it. As a man, the most important thing that I can say is to be a man of your word. Don't have don't have a certain commitment or say that you're going to do something and then you're always that guy that never commits to it. You'll lose respect for yourself. So I think that leans into masculinity very much so. And for femininity, I think women are the most beautiful creatures on this planet. And without women, this whole ship sinks. You guys literally are responsible for life. And sometimes I think that we're in a time now where women in particular, by certain movements or certain pushes, that they're convinced that they need to do certain things because, oh, a man can do it, I can do it. Or they need to commit themselves to extraneous work hours, or they want to be a boss or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I think there's something innate in women that if they leaned into, not only would it be very productive and beautiful for themselves, but I think for family, it's very good. And I think for the nuances of a relationship, it's even better. So I hope we don't run away from that too much in society, because the combination of those two is really what made us succeed. People give a hard time all the time. They say, like, men, and they're this, that, and the other, and then they were oppressing women all the time. I think collectively, men and women have sustained our society to the degree that we've been able to sustain it. It was a collective effort. You can
Hmm.
go way back to men were out at wars, fighting and bringing or bringing home food or doing whatever it is that they were doing, while the women were providing were nurturing and caring after the family. This is a relationship between the two. They're they're both as important as the other. It's not one over trumps the other. This is a collective. We start as individuals, but we end as collectives. And that's what I believe relationships are too.
Okay, there's so many things I want to unpack there.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of go on tangents there.
No, no, that's really good. Okay, so first, I just wanted to touch on that comment of home, that feeling that you mentioned.
Would you
Um,
agree?
I would agree, and I want to share something, which
Okay.
only a few people know. You obviously know this too. So there's that safety element of masculinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a true masculine man, a man that embodies this energy, you can feel it, I think will allow a woman to automatically soften into her feminine and vice versa, right? It's our natural being. And so when I had met you, and I feel like shy sharing this, um, people know, but not to this degree. I had said to you that I felt soul struck.
Yeah, that was what a better comp. You can't get a better compliment than that. So
Yeah,
I
I
appreciate it.
was I was completely soul struck by you, and the feeling that came over me was like this sense of home. and we had just met, and it was really strange, and I didn't fully understand it,
Hmm.
but it just felt so safe, and like, and not in a bad way, because I know there are a lot of people that when you say that, there's like this negative connotation to it. It was like this divine, like masculine safety, and just like feeling like home, and it was your soul for me initially. So I just wanted to say that. I felt called to say that in regards to your comment about home.
Well, it's amazing because I still remember, like, I remember where I was, like, at that time, just mentally and stuff like that. So I think I've always presented that energy, and I think it's something like it's just who I am because I do like to, I feel like a sense of protectiveness or something, or like, and I think that plays into the home comfort feeling. So it's amazing to hear you on the other end because so much went into that lead up to like driving there, being there, and then being with you sitting there, and I'm just like, okay, like this is something cooler than usual.
Mm. Now I've just lost my train of thought. No, no,
I
okay.
because I went on a tangent about like yeah, home and masculinity and femininity and stuff like that. But no, they're great questions, and I think a lot of hopefully people will resonate with a lot of that stuff.
No, they will for sure. And so then so the question I have is, let's say you're currently in a dynamic that maybe, I don't even like to say a traditional lean, because masculinity and femininity, it's innate. It's part of our nature. So when you say a traditional lean, it's just it's part of who, it's innate. So those folks that maybe want to cultivate more of that and really start embracing that, what would you say to them? What advice would you give? Maybe you have a dynamic, for example, where a woman is feeling more masculine in the relationship, and vice versa. How can we sort of, what advice would you give them?
I would say the man needs to start figuring it out and taking lead because the woman often will try to fill that gap in response to the men's lack of.
Okay, but then that requires submission in to a degree to his leadership, and accepting and understanding that someone can lead. The way someone leads is still leading, even though it doesn't look the way you want it
Yeah, but
to.
if she doesn't respect him, like she may, like, she's married to him and stuff like that. Like, of course she respects him, but no. If she doesn't respect him, then she won't allow him to lead, and therefore the whole dynamic's going to be messed off. It's going to be messed up. I think that's where it starts. Again, these are thoughts and things that we talk about all the time, and that I'm continually learning on. So by all means, I don't know the answers to everything 100%, but I think it starts with the man. I think the man needs to lead, and he sets that vibe. He sets the stage. If he's off and he's being lazy or not committing to his word or not doing certain things that you should be doing as a man, protecting, leading, serving to a certain degree, then the whole dynamic shifts. The whole thing comes falling down. I think it starts there.
Well, you mentioned keeping your word, so integrity is this a very significant part of masculinity. I think that there are a lot of talkers.
100%, especially now.
Hmm.
People it's very because it's very easy to talk because a lot of things are difficult. So as a man, you should be able to commit to your word. Like even the simplest things. Like I tell everybody all the time. Like if you commit to like obviously there's it's circumstantial and there's issues that come up or things that can happen. But if you commit to something, you should go through with it. I
Hmm.
think like little things make the big thing. Yeah.
So then, to kind of go pre-relationship for a second, let's say you have a person that's done the work on themselves or is actively doing the work on themselves, right? And we're talking about attracting an aligned relationship.
Hmm.
Let's say they're looking for more of that innate lean when it comes to a relationship, a man wanting to lead, know what he's capable of, a woman who wants to tap into more for femininity, and us lead in our innate being, so to speak. What would you say, and how do you have discernment over, let's say, self sabotage versus something that is actually not good for you?
It would kind of come down to you and understanding yourself because maybe you got into that relationship a little bit too quick, or maybe you're not confident in yourself and where you're at to commit to that relationship fully. Because I can relate to that too. because we go through different experiences before we meet our person. We meet other people too, and maybe that thing, it's not there because you're not fully there, or it's just not right. So it just comes down to you as an individual. You have to be, you have, I always am a big believer in relationships should be supplementary to yourself as an individual. You have to travel through the unknown by yourself a bit before you have somebody tag along, because you're doing a disservice to that person, and then you're also doing a disservice to yourself, most importantly. So if you don't figure your stuff out a little bit, not even figure, like, just find out who you are a bit, like spend some time just like alone. Like I don't know why that's such like a crazy thing for people to understand. Like, it's not that big of a deal, guys. Like, okay, so what? You're not intimate with anybody for a little bit of time. It's worth it in the long run. Like, people are so dedicated or obsessed with the idea that they cannot be solo. They can't be like, everybody's in a relationship. Oh my God, I have to be in one too. Or yeah, we all fall into that. But if you're looking for long term, speaking to people of our age, we're still young. Like, you have your whole life ahead of you. Do a little bit of a deep dive on who you are, figure some stuff out. I'm a big believer in doing things that are uncomfortable, whether that be physical exercise or different sort of mental challenging things, or embracing faith or other certain things. So once you start to lean into that, you start to really develop the tools and skill sets that you'll be able to distinguish those things that you presented. You'll be able to understand where you're at in the relationship, or where you're not at, or whether you are sabotaging or not. You have to have that tool belt before you get into a relationship. But everybody does something different. That's just my perspective on it. Maybe other people found success in getting out of one relationship, for example, spending a short period of time alone, and then getting into another one. Everyone has different journeys and stuff like that. But for me, I resonate with that the most.
The next thing I had, let's say you're dealing with a person who's
Mhm.
afraid of, they're on the brink of choosing their almost person or being alone. What would you say to them?
Well, it depends.
Settling or
Okay,
being alone?
then now it's a big difference. 'Cause
Almost person is not the person.
yeah, exactly. I feel like everybody gets to a certain point of their life where maybe they're in their late 20s or something, and then whoever they're dating at that particular time is the one that, well, it's according to the timeline, so it makes sense. So we might as well pack it in at this point. So there's that as well. And it's redundant and it's annoying, but I think it does come down to you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you believe? Do you believe that that person is in alignment with your values? Because it starts with your values. And if you haven't done that sort of deep dive on yourself to understand your values, how can you determine whether that other person is in alignment with those values? Because that's a very important thing. You have
Yeah.
to understand that, because then you want to have a family with them. You want to go through tough times with them. You want to do all these sort of things. But if your values are off, then that's not going to work. So I would say you need to understand yourself. And then when you're in that relationship with somebody, you'll be able to understand each other better.
Mm-hmm. And when you know yourself enough, I know for a lot of people it can be very difficult. The dating world, the dating scene, just doing that, it can be very taxing
Mm-hmm.
and exhausting,
Mm-hmm.
and can feel never ending for some people. Everyone has a different experience. When you know yourself, it is that much easier to let the wrong one go. Easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know your values, you know the right questions to ask. I feel like there are a lot of people that don't have certain conversations early on. So that's the next thing. It's communicating, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
only is that a part of maintaining, but it is a very crucial part of getting to know somebody and understanding the trajectory of the relationship and where you see it going long term, if that's something you want to pursue, right?
Mm-hmm. And you have to understand. Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about when we first met was non-negotiables. You had all this lingo and stuff for relationships, which helped me.
Yeah.
I always understood certain things, but then you helped me put a mark on it, like non-negotiables. It's all, obviously everybody understands that to a certain extent. It's like things that I'm not willing to bend on, like, time with family, time with friends, or my time with myself and my dedication to my fitness pursuits and stuff like that. If you were to meet somebody and they're like, oh, you got to stop doing that. Yeah, you play soccer on Tuesday nights. Yeah, you're gonna have to pack that in. That's not gonna work. That is not gonna work. That's just, you're starting off on the wrong foot. So if you're meeting somebody that's doing those things to you, and you're willing to accept that, then I would say you're leaning towards settling. because you should always remain true to who you are, and then in return, you'll be a better contribution to your relationship.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people these days, and I hate to even say it like that, but for a lot of people, they get in the habit of collecting red flags because they're maybe afraid of being alone, or they're not comfortable enough with who they are to lead with that conviction and that confidence of, no, no, this is what I want and what I don't want. And then when we extract something from someone that we love about them or that makes them, maybe in the beginning we let it go. And then after, it's like you said, oh no, you can't do this anymore. You can't do that. But and we've said this on your podcast, but it is the truth. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when somebody respects themselves, we respect them.
Yeah.
So for instance, one of your non-negotiables, like you said, was your fitness goals, right? And the time you spend by yourself. I value that same thing.
Exactly.
So there was alignment there. But that was as if, imagine I had said, oh yeah, cool. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what do you mean?
Yeah, that's up to that's up to that person to know that that's a non-negotiable. I'm not going to shift on that. There might be
Right.
other things where you have to compromise, but when it's something that is contributing to you as a person and sustaining a level of happiness and being content with the way you're operating, that's a part of my operations throughout my day. Then you can't bend on that. There might be other things you'll be able to compromise, like, oh, okay, like, oh, I have an obligation on Thursday, but I really need to be there for you, so I'm gonna find a way to make
For
things work.
sure.
Like, that's a little bit different. But if somebody's gonna come in your life and try to tamper with your non-negotiables, I think it's off to a bad start. But as a man, you must command that respect and you must give that respect. I think a relationship can really blossom through that.
Mhm.
Respect, loyalty, understanding, conversation. These things are very big components of a relationship. So as long as you kind of center yourselves around that, I think success is in the sights for a relationship. Those things are important.
But then even on the flip side of that is, let's say a woman to be in her feminine, in order for a man to lead successfully and to show up in all those ways, let's say, a woman also has to tap into her true essence, which really is that receiving energy. She has to receive the leadership. She has to be able to receive that integrity. And it's very hard for a lot of women to receive. Like, that's the reality. Compliments and otherwise, acts of service, it can be very difficult because we've taught, oh, you got to be this independent woman that don't need no man. We need men. We need each other.
We need
Yeah,
each other.
it's collective
100%.
and we're a team. So on that aspect of the collaboration, the collectiveness, that having that nice harmony, working together in the long run, part of the maintaining. What does being a team mean to you in a relationship?
Being a team is everything. You have to work together because you're going to be taking on life together. So
Mhm.
in order to succeed, you have to be able to collaborate with that person that you're with. So you need to have difficult conversations with them. You need to have good conversations with them. You need to be able to ride through the good times and bad. And how are you going to get through both? Sometimes you get to sit pretty on a good time. And then when a bad time comes, you're like, whoa, what the fuck happened? You got to be able to do both. And it's a constant effort and work. Relationships or anything that we do you're always working because we're evolving. We're getting older. We're getting more tired. We're getting frustrated. This bothers me now. Now I need to do this. Now I have this obligation. I need to go here for 2 weeks. I need to move around here. I have to change this location. Like, there's just all these different things that are coming at you in life. But if you have a partner that you can contend with and that challenges you in a productive way, but also you're working together by communicating, by finding that middle ground consistently, you can succeed. It just takes time. You got to be patient, but you can.
Then further to that team aspect, and you said having those conversations among yourselves, being able to defend each other, honor each other publicly and privately. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like, you're with that person's with you, and you have to stay loyal to them, not even in a way where it's like, okay, I'm going to be always loyal to them, like physically loyal to them, but like also like emotionally loyal to them too. But you have to be able to call each other out too in a private and productive way. If you feel that your person is maybe off on a certain thing, I would never recommend to like do something like that in public where you have to kind of call them out on something, but you have to hold each other accountable too, which I think we do that. I think we really do. It's like, okay, we're getting in a cycle here. You're getting in
Mm-hmm.
a cycle here. We're getting into that negative routine. But if we keep each other accountable and we kind of go back and forth and that constant care for each other, you can you can succeed. Like it can happen. Like people will project on you. There's going to be certain negative things that you're going to encounter, but if you're strong in your foundation, your communication is thriving, there'll always be an avenue out.
The outcome of that is truly unwavering love, loyalty, and respect.
Those are very important. I know it sounds cliche and people hear it all the time, but those are important pillars to a relationship. It starts with respect, and love will grow and it will come and it will be like this and it will be but that that foundation of respect and care is going to supersede and really maintain us forward.
So then that leads me to marriage.
Mm-hmm.
That's a chapter that you and I are about to get underway. We are underway, we're engaged now. What does marriage mean to you?
Marriage is for life. It's a companionship now brought to a union that is for life. And I think it's embedded with faith. I think there's a religious element to it, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. Um, but marriage is the complete commitment between one person and another. It's till death do its part. Is that what it is? Till
Till
death.
death to his part, yeah.
And it's the understanding and the mentality that we're now taking life on together. Life is no longer just through my lens or your lens. It's a union. It's between both of us. So we're going to be presented with challenges. We're going to have good things. We're going to have bad things, but we're going to have to get through them all together. And then in extension to that, marriage is the precursor to family,
Mm-hmm.
which I would hope that we're in a time now when our generation still values family and having kids and stuff like that, because having somebody like Patrick see him grow from when he was very small. 2011, I was 18 years of age, to then see him grow now into being 12, going to be 13. That was my first relationship with seeing somebody grow. It's being so close with somebody and seeing somebody grow from such a small child to from a baby to then now like a young adolescent teenager almost. So that changed my perspective and it made me understand the real reason we're here. And I believe family and having kids and letting your name and what you imprint on this world live on through your kids is something I strive towards. And relationships, marriage, and then family, they kind of all have to happen in sequence. So it's something I thought about for a long time and I valued, and now it's kind of unfolding itself by the grace of God, by so many good things of all these little things that happen throughout life, in my own individual life and your individual life, to then collide to now it happened for both of us. But it's beautiful and I look forward to it, and it's something I always did value. Me and my friends, like a lot of times, like guys are just in the back, maybe they don't really care, but we, like me and Carlo used to talk about like best man speeches all the time, and we always valued marriage in that sense too. Like, oh, you're on my wedding day, on my wedding day, on my it was always a monumental moment, and in our culture, it's something that's very important, and especially for our parents' generations and stuff, they look at it like a major accomplishment. So I look forward to, not even for myself, but for my family, to be able to celebrate that and then open the next chapter, because life is a game of it is somewhat a sequence of chapters, and I look forward to that chapter with you.
That is so beautifully said. I love it. And I'm just like gleaming with joy inside. Is gleaming a word? I don't know. I think I might have
Look it
just
up.
made it up. That leads me to a time where we're hearing a lot about it. Do you think that a lot of people are going into marriage not fully informed about what it is and the kind of commitment that it is? Because if you think about it, one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life is who you choose as a life partner. Love grows, but then love becomes a choice. Marriage is a choice. Marriage is that unwavering loyalty and that choice to be loyal to this one person, have family with this person, respect this person, grow old with this person. Do you think that a lot of our generation and generations to come have a full understanding of what they are getting into when it comes to marriage?
Probably not. honestly, we live in a time where technology and social media is a big component to our lives. So I think that plays into people's decisions to maybe get married and stuff. It's a sense of an accomplishment, and it generates approval from the external.
What do you mean in that?
Well, that, oh, look, so and so is married. That means they're doing good. Or, oh my God, they're single. They're still single. They're in their 30s. Wow, what's happening? What's wrong? That's the mentality from the outside looking in. When I was single before I met you, a lot of people would ask me, like they would almost look at me with three heads, thinking that why am I single? Meanwhile, I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing what I believe to be beneficial for longevity, which is individual work and grappling with those things that I'm not that good at yet, but I need to figure out. That's what I'm doing behind the scenes. But you're trying to explain that to a middle-aged Italian person. They're not going to really understand that because they look at like you got a job, get married. That's the way they look at things. So I think people might fall into that and they don't understand the complexities of marriage. I'm still learning them too. Of course, I have certain precursors and understandings and meanings that I attach to marriage, but I think we're in a time now where people think they always reserve the right to leave, and I guess they always do. But marriage is supposed to be a commitment through thick and thin. It's something that's traditional, in my opinion, religious experience, and it's the beginning of family. So we're in a time now where we compare ourselves to others, and with social media being around and stuff like that, sometimes I feel like people get married to post it on Instagram, for fuck's sakes. Like, I know that's a crazy thought, but it's wild. It's wild to think, but I could be wrong. But I think social media plays into everything in life, and you'd have to consider it with that too. But just look at the divorce rate, right? It's it's in the 60s percentile, something along those lines. And why? There's there's so many reasons that we can unpack that further. It would take a whole other conversation, a whole other podcast, but it's complex. And I think that once you really take stock on your own self, and then get into a relationship, really take stock on that relationship. And when you're ready and you're committed, you go for it, take a leap into the unknown. Things can happen, but do people really take that time to grapple with those thoughts and notions? I would hope so. I'm not convinced yet.
Isn't it sad how you said a lot of people, you said it sounds funny, but a lot of people will or will get married just for the photos and so on. And to some degree it is that benchmark, and it is that next milestone. It's that next thing. And so if you're uncomfortable with yourself, let's say, and then let's say you settle, and the next thing to do is have marriage or is to get married, you're now committing to that person. You're getting married, and then you're starting family with somebody who maybe to you in to your core, is maybe not your person, but you feel like it's too late to go back because you're into it too deep, because you were afraid of being alone, and because you didn't trust that inner voice. You didn't trust yourself
Hmm.
enough. You didn't follow that unapologetic self.
Yeah, but then people are going, "Oh, you're getting married. Congratulations. Oh my God, you're doing this. Congratulations." You feel, then you get that reward. I'd like to think optimistically that people don't do that, but yeah, that's a part of the equation too. You have to, because there is a sense of approval from external sources when you do something like that. We received it too. Good and bad. There's the combination of both, but um, this is something that's supposed to be a commitment for life, and I believe that love is embedded with that too. It's something everlasting, and it's an ever working progress, but it's beautiful.
What do you think makes for a truly fulfilled and happy relationship or marriage? I know we're not married yet, but are there any identifiers or signals where you're like, I think they're really happy? Or what things do you think equal a happy relationship truly?
Well, from the outside looking in and assessing somebody else's relationship, you never know. You never know. Look at all the Netflix documentaries where there's like
It's
some
true.
crazy neighbor that ends up doing some wild shit. You never actually know what somebody else is going through, good or bad. So there's that. There's no way to really assess true love. I think there's a level of calmness to a relationship that you can be around and be like, wow, so and so is like, they're just like chill, and they're just like, they're good with this person going like that. They're this good with their other person doing this. And there's a sense of calmness to their love, and you can kind of pick up on that. But as far as how to like make our relationship like that, again, it just comes down to like all the things that we just kind of encapsulate, like just in summarization to the whole conversation is love, respect, loyalty, and conversation. I think is a big part of it. How many times do you go to a restaurant and two people are seemingly on a date or together eating some food and they're not talking at all? I think that these things, these little things that we take for granted are very important, and it's a journey, and it's an continuous work between you and yourself, and then you in that relationship. So in order to succeed, you have to be committed, and you have to be willing to go through it all, because that's what life can present at certain times. So I'd like to think we're equipped for it, and I'd like to think that we're going to continue to be equipped for it. And I look forward to taking on the challenges. And I think that you need to find a life partner that's going to be able to do that with you. And I think that we found that in each other.
Absolutely. And finally, Stefano. Actually,
Stefano.
I have two things.
Sure.
I like to go deep. Okay. So, one, what would your present self say to that 21-year-old?
Well, 21-year-old, I would say, firstly, it's going to be all right. Like, take it easy, have a coffee. Like, it's going to be good. Don't worry. Because back then, I didn't have the skill set. I didn't have the knowledge that I needed to attain. But you need to go through certain things to be able to attain it. So I would say it's going to be okay. And I would also say, just don't care about what people think. And that thing that you want to do, or those things that you want to try, do it. Try it out. Figure out who you are. In order to figure out who you are, you got to move forward, even if you're stumbling and you're falling down and you're getting up and you're walking for a bit and then you stumble again. Stumble to more of you. That's what I would say. Because that 21-year-old Stefano, I don't even know if you'd be able to hang out with him. He was crazy. And it was all a part of the journey. And that's kind of where that 21 was pretty much where the direction started to shift. But it took time.
And time is a beautiful thing when we fully understand that everything is on a higher being's clock and not our own. And the journey is essential to getting to where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And that leaves me to close. I know you like to do this on yours. I do it on mine as well. Is there anything you feel called to say to the viewers and listeners today?
Well, you know I'm going to say it to you.
Okay.
I want to say I'm very proud of you, and I'm happy that you committed and that you're doing this podcast, because just as we talked about and throughout this conversation, we're stumbling towards more of ourselves. I think you're going to do exactly that by having conversations with people, by putting yourself in stressful environments to conduct an interview, as we have done today. Through that, what you're doing is you're feeding that inner child, and you're feeding that inner Rebecca that you know is so important to you, and you know that it's meaningful to you. And this is what you're made to do. You're a professional. You're really good at it. And I'm super proud of you. And it's amazing to see things unfold. And I'll be backing you the whole way through, as you always have do for me. And I think that's a big part of a relationship. So I say a big salute, as I say on my podcast. I give you a big salute. I say thank you. I say keep on going. And I'll say never stop smiling, because we need more smiles like that, baby girl. That's
Love it so much. Thanks, babes. Love you lots.
Love you lots. Appreciate you.
That's it.
Ciao.